Next we're going to do a side to side seam. We know that this is the cast on edge and the whole stitches are going to be pointing down toward the cast on edge. We want to make sure that we're not going in between two halves of a stitch, but in between two stitches. So if you sort of pull this out, you can see that there's sort of a wonky row of stitches here, and then this is the second row of stitches. We want to go into this stitch right here, in between rows of stitches. Sometimes it's helpful to put pins or a thin knitting needle right down that row so that it's really easy to identify where you're going. Now on this side, that's the first row of stitches, that's the second row of stitches. So we're going right in here. We're making sure that the stitches on either side of this knitting needle marker are, the V's are pointing down. Alright, now I find that it's more difficult to try to work going up the sides. So I turn my work sideways. Okay, so I'm going to come up through the loop that's at the bottom of this ditch, right there. And I'm going to come over here and I'm going to go in here, making sure that I'm in between two rows, two columns of stitches, and come up under two of the bars. Then come back in here, going into the same hole that we came out of earlier, and making sure that I'm not going in to the middle of a row, and pick up 2 bars on this side. I come over here, pick up the next 2 bars going into the same hole I came out of, pick up 2 bars, and then I just go back and forth. I'm always moving those markers out of my way, but not completely out, so that I know exactly where I'm going. Once you've established really well where you're going, you can actually take them out and not worry about it. After a few stitches, pull it tight and you'll see that you can't even tell where that seam is. It completely disappears. Okay, so I've come out of there, so I go under 2 bars, come over here, go under 2 bars, come over here, go under 2 bars, over here, and under 2 bars. Oops. You want to use a length of yarn that's no more than about 20 inches or half a meter, and you want to use a different yarn than the ends. You don't want to use the ends, because if you use the ends, you may get, it's really easy to pull the yarn out, the seaming yarn, if it's not attached. If it is already attached to your knitting, like it would be if you were using an end, here I'm picking up just 1 because that's all I have left. Come over here, pick up the last one, then bring it back through this side, and to the back. And I'll pull. So here you can see that this is an almost invisible seam on this side. Again, a nice flat seam on this side. It's slightly more visible on the back and the other seam, and I think I need to pull this a little bit more. So this one is a little more visible, but on the front side it's invisible. And even on the back side, it's really hard to tell. Unless you pull back that seam, it's hard to tell that you even used a different color of yarn.